My wife served me divorce papers at my dad's funeral, but I was 10 steps ahead. The company my father built from the ground up here in Portland, Oregon, has always been my pride. We specialize in cybersecurity solutions for Fortune 500 companies, and our reputation across the Pacific Northwest is as solid as granite. My analytical mind and ability to anticipate problems have always been my greatest strengths, both in business and in life. I truly believed I had a good marriage with Ivy. We'd been together since I was 37, and she seemed to embrace not only me, but the family business and everything that came with it. Together, we raised two kids, Michael, 17, and Emily, 15, who I thought were the very center of our world. Or at least, I thought they were the center of mine. At the time, my father had been battling pancreatic cancer for 8 long months. The doctors at OHSU gave us a timeline, and deep down we knew the end was near. He had always treated Ivy like his own daughter, and it was clear how much his approval meant to her throughout our marriage. That's why what happened at his funeral hit me like a freight train. The memorial service was held at Powell Butte Cemetery on a gray October morning. The entire Portland tech community showed up to pay their respects. My father had mentored half the cybersecurity professionals in the city, and our clients even sent representatives from as far away as San Francisco and Seattle. I was standing by the graveside, watching the casket being lowered, when Ivy suddenly walked up to me with an envelope in her hands. Her timing couldn't have been worse, but looking back now, I realized that was exactly the point. "Elias," she said, her voice steady and calm, "I need you to sign these." I opened the envelope, and my blood ran cold. Divorce papers, handed to me with dirt still clinging to my shoes from my father's grave. "Are you serious right now?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice low as people were still milling around, offering condolences. "The timing isn't ideal, but this needed to happen," she replied flatly. "According to your father's will, the family assets transfer to me as the surviving daughter-in-law. My attorney says it's ironclad." Before I could even process the magnitude of what she was saying, Michael and Emily walked up behind her. The look on their faces shook me to my core, cold, distant, almost disgusted. "Dad, we've made our decision," Michael said, loud enough for several family friends to hear. "We're changing our last name to Reed. Mom's new partner has offered us opportunities you never could." Emily nodded firmly, her voice sharp as a knife. "We want to live with Mom and Arthur. He understands us better than you ever did." Arthur Reed, my business partner of 7 years. The man I had trusted with access to our most sensitive client data and financial systems. Hearing my children say his name in that moment felt like betrayal layered upon betrayal. Standing there in my black suit, surrounded by mourners, I felt something inside me shift. Not anger. Anger is hot and reckless. This was something colder, sharper. The same methodical thinking that built a cybersecurity empire was now locking onto this betrayal like a predator to prey. What Ivy didn't realize was that I had already been watching this unfold for months. When you run a cybersecurity firm, you develop instincts, an eye for deception for patterns that don't quite add up. And Ivy's behavior had been flashing red alerts since early spring. It started small. She grew protective of her phone, angling the screen away whenever she texted. She began working late, at her marketing job more often, but when I called her office, her assistant casually mentioned she'd left hours earlier. There were unexplained charges on our joint credit card, lavish dinners at expensive restaurants downtown, nights she had claimed to be home with a headache. But the biggest warning sign wasn't Ivy. It was Arthur. He had joined our company 3 years after we expanded into corporate consulting. Arthur was smooth, polished, MBA from Stanford, natural charm, and a talent for business development. He brought in deals, yes, but over the past 6 months, he had been asking questions that went far beyond his role. "Hey, Elias," he'd say casually during meetings, "how exactly are our financial reserves structured? Who manages the overseas accounts?" At the time, I brushed it off as curiosity, but now I could see exactly where it had been leading. "I've been thinking about the company's asset allocation," Arthur had said one afternoon, leaning casually against my office door frame. How much of our liquid capital is tied up in that Portland real estate portfolio your dad assembled? Other times, he'd drop by unannounced with comments that seemed harmless then, but now felt like calculated probes. Your father was brilliant with those early investments. I bet the family trust is worth more than the business itself, right? At the time, I dismissed it as small talk, but in hindsight, it was reconnaissance. He wasn't chatting. He was mapping the battlefield. The breakthrough came in July. Our IT department flagged unusual login activity. Someone had been accessing client files and financial records late at night, long after office hours. Digital forensics confirmed it was Arthur's credentials, but the timestamps didn't line up with his supposed schedule. He wasn't working. He was digging. That's when I decided to launch my own quiet investigation. I hired Marcus Webb, a former FBI agent turned private investigator who specialized in corporate espionage. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had delivered photographic evidence that hit me like a gut punch. Ivy and Arthur, together at the Heathman Hotel in downtown Portland. Not once, not twice, but multiple times over several months. And then came the bombshell. Marcus discovered they'd also been meeting with a probate attorney named Victoria Steinberg. Her reputation preceded her, an expert in twisting inheritance law, particularly in cases involving blended families and complex business holdings. That's when everything clicked. They weren't just having an affair. They were orchestrating a takeover. Yes, my father's will did include provisions that appeared to benefit Ivy, but those were contingent on circumstances I knew had not been met. Still, with Victoria's creative legal strategies, they were plotting to seize both my personal assets and my shares in the company. If they pulled it off, I'd be forced out of the very empire my father and I had built. But perhaps the cruelest strike of all was how they weaponized Michael and Emily. Arthur had positioned himself as the cool, understanding father figure. He took them shopping with his American Express black card, dangling promises of shiny cars, BMW for Michael, Mercedes C-Class for Emily. He painted them a future of private schools, trust funds, European vacations. And little by little, my own children slipped further from me, falling under his spell. Your dad's too conservative with money. I overheard Arthur saying to Emily one warm August evening at our family barbecue. His voice carried the smug confidence of a man who thought he had already won. When I have more influence over the family finances, you'll see what real opportunities look like. Hearing him speak those words to my daughter, planting seeds of doubt and greed in her young mind, nearly broke me. But instead of exploding, I did what I do best. I documented everything. Every suspicious meeting, every irregular transaction, every conversation I could discreetly record. Nothing escaped my attention. I also turned to Patricia Morrison, my attorney and one of the sharpest legal minds in the Pacific Northwest. She had built her career handling corporate fraud cases that made headlines. If anyone could help me navigate this storm, it was her. Elias, Patricia told me in a quiet, closed-door meeting in September, if Arthur and Ivy are planning what it looks like they're planning, they'll have no choice but to cross into federal crimes. Wire fraud, embezzlement, possibly even racketeering if they're coordinating with others across state lines. If we gather the right evidence, this isn't just a divorce case. It's a criminal conspiracy. Her words gave me clarity. This wasn't just betrayal of the heart. It was an assault on everything my father and I had built. But as much as I wanted to act, I couldn't. Not yet. My father's health was fading quickly. Pancreatic cancer was eating him alive. And any scandal, any public exposure of Ivy's betrayal, would have destroyed him emotionally in his final days. He adored her. He had walked her down the aisle at our wedding after her own father passed away. To him, she was family, the daughter he never had. I refused to let him die with that illusion shattered. So I waited. I watched. And I prepared. Behind the scenes, I quietly moved assets into accounts Ivy couldn't access. I preserved every piece of digital evidence connecting Arthur to the suspicious activity. I built monitoring systems so advanced they would flag the moment anyone attempted to tamper with company funds. It was the kind of system we designed for Fortune 500 clients, now turned inward against my own partner and my own wife. But none of that compared to the personal toll. Night after night, I sat at the dinner table with my children, listening to them talk about their futures, while knowing their loyalty had already been bought. Watching Ivy smile and act the part of a devoted wife while she was actively scheming to rob me blind nearly tore me apart. I had to act normal, play my role, and conceal the storm brewing inside me. That's the cruelest irony of betrayal. It doesn't come from enemies. It comes from those you love most. Still, patience is everything in cybersecurity. Just like hackers eventually expose themselves when they think no one's watching, I knew Ivy and Arthur would slip up. And when they did, I would be ready. The funeral was on Thursday. By Monday morning, they made their first major mistake. That IT was early Monday morning, just 3 days after my father's funeral. I sat in my office at 7 a.m., reviewing quarterly reports, trying to ground myself in the one thing that had always made sense: work. The stillness of the building at that hour was comforting. Or at least it was, until a sharp knock at my door pulled me back to reality. It was Janet Kim, our CFO. Normally composed, Janet now wore a look of unease I had rarely seen in her. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Elias," she began carefully, "we have a problem." My gut clenched. "What kind of problem?" She handed me a file. Someone initiated a wire transfer authorization over the weekend, $2.3 million from our operating account. The destination is an offshore consulting firm I've never heard of. "Show me," I said, though deep down I already knew what I was about to see. The document bore Arthur's digital signature. The date was Saturday, just 48 hours after I had buried my father. The receiving company? Pacific Strategic Consulting LLC, registered in the Cayman Islands. I let out a slow breath, more confirmation than surprise. "Janet, I need you to freeze all external transfers immediately. Call our bank and tell them we're conducting an internal audit. Put a 48-hour hold on any transactions over $50,000. Janet hesitated. "Should I notify Arthur about the freeze?" "Not yet," I said coldly. "Let's see how he reacts when he discovers it on his own." I didn't have to wait long. At 10:15 a.m., my office door slammed open, and in stormed Arthur. Gone was his usual polished, smooth-talking demeanor. His face was flushed, his composure cracked. "Elias, what the hell is going on with our banking systems?" he demanded. "I have a time-sensitive consulting contract that needs to be funded today, and the bank is giving me some runaround about account freezes." I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands calmly on the desk. "I'm not sure what you mean, Arthur," I said evenly. "What kind of consulting contract requires a $2.3 million transfer to the Cayman Islands on a weekend?" The color drained from his face. For the first time in 7 years, I watched Arthur Reed falter. He scrambled, his voice tight, desperate. It's a legitimate business expense for the Henderson Industries account," he stammered, though the words lacked conviction. I held his gaze, letting the silence stretch just long enough for him to feel the weight of it. His excuse was flimsy, and he knew I wasn't buying it. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. He had played his hand too soon, and I'd caught him red-handed. And he knew it. Arthur tried to bluff his way out of the Cayman transfer, muttering something about a consulting contract. I pressed harder. "We discussed expanding our Caribbean operations, did we?" I asked, tilting my head. "Funny, I don't recall that conversation. And Henderson Industries is based in Phoenix. Why would they need Cayman Islands consulting services?" His lips tightened. He didn't have an answer. Without another word, Arthur turned on his heel and stormed out of my office. That was the moment I knew it was time to move. That very afternoon, I called Patricia Morrison. It's time, I told her. By Wednesday, Patricia had filed preliminary injunctions freezing all joint assets until a forensic accounting investigation could be completed. Even more importantly, she had reached out to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division here in Portland. The thing about financial fraud is simple. It always leaves a trail. And when you're married to someone who runs a cybersecurity company, that trail is practically gift-wrapped. The forensic accountants uncovered everything. Arthur and Ivy had been siphoning money for months. Fake consulting contracts, inflated vendor invoices, phantom employees collecting paychecks that went straight into their pockets. By the time the dust settled, the total theft exceeded $800,000. That wasn't just betrayal, it was federal felony territory. But the most damning evidence didn't come from the bank statements. It came from their own mouths. Our company provided business phones to all executives. What Arthur and Ivy conveniently forgot was that every message, every email, every call was automatically backed up to our secure servers. Nothing disappears in my world, not when I designed the system. When investigators pulled the transcripts, the truth spilled out in devastating clarity. Ivy bragging about how she played the grieving daughter-in-law to earn my father's trust. Arthur laughing about how easy it was to exploit the old man's guilt over my long work hours. And worst of all, they mocked my children. They referred to Michael and Emily as useful idiots, pawns to be manipulated for emotional leverage during the divorce proceedings. When my kids saw those transcripts, the cracks in their loyalty shattered completely. Emily was the first to come back to me. One evening in November, she found Ivy's laptop left open and stumbled across some of the police reports. She came to me sobbing, her whole body shaking. "Dad, is it true? What they're saying about Mom and Arthur stealing from the company?" I pulled her into my arms. "I'm afraid it is, sweetheart. But listen to me carefully, it's not your fault. You were manipulated by people you trusted." Michael was harder. His hero worship of Arthur ran deep. He resisted, argued, clung to the image of Arthur as the man who promised him cars and vacations. But then the arrest came. The FBI moved quickly. They walked Arthur out of our offices in handcuffs, right in front of half the staff. The look on Michael's face when he saw the man he'd admired paraded across the evening news in an orange jumpsuit was something I'll never forget. His illusions crumbled in an instant. The Portland Business Journal ran the headline across their front page. Granger Digital Security Executives charged in $800,000 embezzlement scheme. The article laid it all bare. How a trusted business partner and the company founder's daughter-in-law systematically defrauded the family business while the patriarch lay dying of cancer. It wasn't just a crime. It was a betrayal that cut through generations. Instead of abandoning us, our clients rallied around the company. To them, the story wasn't a scandal. It was proof of our security expertise. We had caught the criminals using our own systems. Within weeks of the arrests, several new contracts landed on my desk. Ivy's assets were frozen, including the house she thought she'd seized through inheritance games. She moved in with her sister in Beaverton and took a call center job just to afford her legal defense. Arthur's fall was just as steep. After the conviction, Stanford revoked his MBA credential, and no reputable tech firm would touch him. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Spokane. The probate court went further, ruling that Ivy's actions constituted financial elder abuse against my father. That ruling disqualified her from receiving any inheritance benefits. The family trust remained exactly as my father intended, protecting the business and funding his grandchildren's education. 6 months later came the most sobering moment of all, sentencing at the federal courthouse in Portland. Judge Sarah Chun gave Arthur 4 years in federal prison and ordered $850,000 in restitution. Ivy received 3 years and was ordered to pay an additional $400,000 in damages for her role in the conspiracy. The federal prosecutor called it one of the most callous cases of financial elder abuse they'd seen in 20 years of practice. I sat in the gallery and watched them led away in shackles. I felt no glee, no triumphant surge, just a quiet certainty that justice had taken its course. The biggest change happened at home. The truth shattered Michael and Emily's view of the world, but it also opened space for conversations we'd never had. Walls started coming down. "Dad, how did you stay so calm through all of this?" Michael asked one evening as we reviewed his college applications in my home office. He'd decided on computer science at Oregon State. He wants to earn his place in the family business one day. "Son," I said, "when someone betrays your trust, you have two choices. You can react emotionally and make mistakes, or you can think strategically and let their own actions undo them." Emily listened from the doorway and stepped in, resting a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Dad," she said softly, "for not seeing it sooner. You weren't supposed to see it," I told her. "You were manipulated by people you trusted. That's on them." In the months that followed, we rebuilt slowly, deliberately. The company strengthened its controls, our team grew tighter, and my kids learned the difference between charm and character. My father used to say that integrity is a long game. He was right. In the end, that's what saved us. People who lie and steal always reveal their true nature. It's only a matter of time. By Emily's senior year of high school, she had developed a keen interest in business law. Watching the trial unfold had left a deep impression on her. Many evenings, she'd sit across from me at the kitchen table, peppering me with questions about corporate governance, legal ethics, and the subtle ways power can be abused. "Were you scared Mom would actually succeed?" she asked me one night. "Scared? No," I said after a pause. "Disappointed? Absolutely. But your grandfather taught me something important about both business and life. Always keep detailed records and never act out of anger." Those lessons carry me through. And because of them, the company didn't just survive, it thrived. Our reputation for detecting internal fraud quickly spread. Suddenly, we weren't just another cybersecurity firm. We were the firm for companies terrified of insider threats. Within a year, Nike, Intel, and several major banks across the Pacific Northwest signed with us. Revenues surged by 40%. I promoted Janet Kim to Chief Operating Officer and brought on 2 additional forensic accountants. Together, we refined our internal security protocols, methods that eventually became industry standards. Harvard Business Review even published a case study on our insider threat detection system. 3 years later, a letter arrived. It was from Ivy, mailed from FCI Dublin in California. She claimed she had reformed, attending Bible study, seeking forgiveness, and wanted supervised visits with the children. I brought the letter to Michael and Emily, by then both in college. Their reaction was instant and united. "Dad, some bridges can't be rebuilt," Emily said firmly. She made her choices. "We've made ours." Michael nodded. "We got a business to run together. That's our future, not dwelling on our past." I couldn't have been prouder. Their clarity and wisdom spoke volumes about how far they had come. Arthur tried, too. He sent me several letters, blaming financial pressure and insisting he never intended to hurt the family. I didn't bother finishing them. Excuses are not the same as accountability, and some people will never take responsibility for their actions. Today, Granger Digital Security employs more than 200 people, with offices in Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco. Michael graduated summa cum laude from Oregon State and now leads our threat analysis division. Emily is pursuing her law degree, intent on specializing in corporate ethics and compliance. The company stands stronger than ever, but the real legacy is not just in contracts or revenues. It's in the resilience of a family that endured betrayal, sought justice, and emerged with integrity intact. Emily eventually graduated with her business degree from the University of Oregon and now leads our legal compliance department. She's taken everything she learned, both in school and from watching our family's trials, and built a team that ensures we operate with complete transparency and accountability. To honor my father's legacy, we also established a scholarship fund in his name. Every year, it's awarded to students who study cybersecurity and business ethics. Young men and women who demonstrate not just technical ability, but also moral character. My father always said that true, lasting success requires both. And now, through this scholarship, we're helping the next generation carry those values forward. Just last month, we celebrated our company's 30th anniversary at the Portland Art Museum. Clients, employees, industry partners, and even some competitors gathered under one roof to celebrate the business my father built with integrity and hard work. As I stood at the podium, looking out over that crowd, I was struck by something profound. The betrayal that began at my father's funeral, the darkest chapter of my life, had ultimately become the foundation for our greatest strength. Ivy and Arthur believed they could manipulate their way into wealth, that deception could secure them a future. But all they proved was this: legitimate success can never be stolen. It's earned, patiently, strategically, and with principled decision-making. My father had a saying I'll never forget: character isn't built during the good times, it's revealed during the worst times. And he was right. What could have destroyed us instead revealed who we truly were. That betrayal, as painful as it was, became the reason my family and our company grew stronger than ever. Some might call what happened revenge, but I don't see it that way. To me, it was accountability. When you run a business built on trust and security, you learn an important truth. Lies can hide for a while, but the truth always surfaces. The key is patience. You have to let people's actions expose who they really are. Today, when young entrepreneurs come to me for advice, I pass along the same wisdom my father gave me. Keep meticulous records. Trust, but always verify. And never let emotions cloud your judgment. Those 3 principles have protected me from betrayal, guided my business decisions, and ensured that what we're building isn't just profitable, but lasting. The Granger name still carries weight in Portland's business community. It stands for integrity, reliability, and the kind of steady, thoughtful leadership that creates generational wealth. That's the legacy my father started, and it's the one I'm proud to protect, and eventually pass down to Michael and Emily. So when I think back, I don't dwell on the betrayal anymore. Instead, I focus on what grew out of it: resilience, wisdom, and a future that honors my father's vision. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss the next story of justice, resilience, and life lessons learned the hard way. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.